Welcome back to Cosmic Truth. Tonight's guest is exactly the perfect candidate for why I'm doing these live streams. It's for those of you that have had a paranormal experience or an ET related experience or something else. I really wanted to have a place for you guys to feel comfortable in sharing your story. Um, some people may believe, you know, what's being said tonight, or some people may not believe what's being said tonight, and that's okay because of their perspective. But there are going to be folks that can relate to what is being said tonight. So I was trying to figure out how to really open up tonight's show, and I came across something that was just perfect. So I'd like to read that to you, and then we'll bring Kristin on the show. So let me read this to you because this was just perfect. Someone needs to hear your story. Someone wants to hear your perspective. You're sitting on experiences that could shift someone's mindset. You have walked through things that others are struggling with right now. Your truth, your voice, your lessons could be the light someone has been searching for. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be real. Too many people stay quiet thinking that they're not ready, not qualified, not enough. But your story has power because it's yours. And what you have survived might be exactly what helps someone else survive too. Speak up, share your scars. You never know who's waiting to heal through your honesty. So, with that being said, let's welcome Kristin to the show. Hi.
Hi.
Got a little tongue tied there in the beginning, but we got
I
through
started
it.
waving before I came on.
Oh, I'm so excited to do tonight's show,
Me
and
too. Thank you so much for
let's.
having me.
Oh no, thank you for sharing your story. And like I was just saying, I created this live stream because first of all, I'm kind of not scared to death, but I was always nervous talking in front of people. So
Oh,
for me to do this is like I'm really like challenging myself. But I love it. So if I know I'm helping other people, you
absolutely.
know, that's what
Absolutely.
makes the difference. So um trying to figure out where to start. So I'm sure most people are going to want to know about why the topic was, a hybrid daughter.
Hmm.
So I guess we can just kind of jump into that and
Yeah.
go from there.
Yeah. I'm all all yours.
So what makes you think that you're a hybrid daughter?
um gosh. I wouldn't say that there was like any specific event that took place that was like, aha, that's the event that made sure
Yeah.
that's how I know. Since I was a child, I knew that I was different. I knew that I had a different understanding of the world, um, and a different understanding of the density around me than other people understood. And so it was really tough as a little kid to try to put that into words or explain my experiences. I've always had the sense of something watching over me. Um, and I've always had a presence that was warm and loving that has overlooked even my darkest days.
So you
So,
basically you felt like you knew you were different, like just
oh yeah, yeah. So for as long I can't remember a time. My earliest memory, I don't ever remember not knowing. I knew that I've always known I was different. And that was something that I accepted. I always struggled with like on outward appearance things. But as
hmm
far as like my internal knowing, like I knew my entire life that I was a little different. And it wasn't really until I I came into who I was and my womanhood that I understood why. And really I had my first awakening, my real awakening about 2.5 years ago, in 2023. And when
Okay.
it was like a coming online, I guess, if you will. But I've always had some sort of contact to some sort of tie to outer
Now,
forces.
I know your father recently passed, and
Mhm.
that's a tragedy to lose a parent. But you did come across some of his things that kind
Mhm.
of, to
Yes.
me, kind of ties everything into what you're saying. Because, one thing that I said on my banner was he may have been involved in the secret space program.
Hmm.
So, you want to touch on that a little bit, and I can pull up these.
So I'll touch on what I know that I can touch on, what I know I'm like lawfully permitted to touch on.
Mhm,
And that's that, yeah, he had he had involvement um in all kinds of stuff. His primary field of concern was space. But he did all kinds of things within the realm of like National Guard. He was a lieutenant colonel, but his primary field was space. And he didn't talk about anything. He
couldn't confirm
he
or deny.
couldn't confirm or deny absolutely anything, even on his deathbed. But he did let me know that we weren't under any direct threat. There wasn't, if there was extraterrestrial intelligence that we were dealing with, it wasn't harmful or threatening to our well-being
Mhm,
um, at this time. Also, um, he really did say, "Oh, I don't know." And I got confirmation after he passed from my command team, because before he passed on, that is when I awakened right before he passed, 2 years ago. So
mhm,
he passed away in November. So when I started having my awakening, I started asking him things, and there were things that came up about the Pleiadians, and something that really set me off. And it was something that I found in regards to their taxing, the way they were being taxed. And it set me off, and that I brought it to my dad's attention, and he immediately said that I needed to drop it, just ignore it. I needed to pretend like I just let it go. And I was like, those
yeah.
are my friends. And he was like, let it go. So that kind of was like, okay. So I knew that there was involvement. I've gotten confirmation that during his involvement, he was failed in his consciousness. So he stepped in to these programs. However, at the beginning of the programs, I don't know if it was something that took place at the beginning or at the end, but like at every assignment, his memory was like like
You
he'd
think
go
they
home.
wiped it?
Yeah, yeah, he wasn't even allowed to understand. Like, he knew what he would go into, but then he would not recall like events, or I don't even know how to explain this. He was not consciously aware
What happened during
of what
the
happened while he was working. That was part of like,
whatever program?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So he didn't even remember. It's that secretive, because we're talking about genetics that stem from pre-human, like we're talking about ancient genetic scaffolding, and how light in general can manipulate your genetic material. And that is something that um it it's a piece of the puzzle, not just for one race, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, photons, light carries information, and I kind of understand what you're saying.
It's it's
And
really it's such a weird. Okay, so I am a hybrid being. I am a human light being hybrid that carries archic womb line sovereignty. So I come from a breath line that existed before humans were on Earth. It existed as a thought, like feminine, pure feminine thought, before we were actualized into embodiment. So
okay.
my genetic DNA blueprint comes from um, much older lineage than has what is carried currently. And so my job is to help restore that with humanity and the ascension process for those people who are just waking up.
Okay. And it's interesting. Like I just think this is fascinating. Um, I'm gonna probably say his name wrong, but uh, Stefan Matthias. Are you familiar with him? He's on Gaia, and he travels all over unlocking these keys. But
I've
you
heard of him on Gaia. Yeah, I've heard of him. I know that I've like watched blips. The only thing I've really watched a ton on Gaia is Cosmic Disclosure, just because
yeah,
when I first heard Emery talking about hybrids and the potential, it was like all these pieces. I was like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
like I'm
Well,
mind blown.
what I was bringing up with Stefan Matthias, I want to say it's Matthias.
I it,
His whole show on Gaia talks about remembering, and it just
mhm.
what you were saying just kind of like a bulb went off, because he's talking about ancient information and remembering where we come
Right.
from. So that's that just reminded me of that. But
So that's the
yeah,
whole point. So what I guess we are like bridge bridge builders, or like gap bufferers.
yeah,
So what I am is like a human light being hybrid, and what that means is that I can bridge the density um between the third dimension and fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensions. I am learning right now, well, learning, but also going through physical changes to be able to physically be able to handle that process without like having a seizure. Is essentially like what it breaks down to is if you, and that's why people are kind of coming into their awareness and their awakening step by step, because if these ETs and I'll let me pause and explain. I don't like to use the word ETs because alien is like kind of like a funky. I don't know. It just puts a different
yeah,
spin
these
on things.
races, yeah,
Yeah,
these
we are just it's just older genetic material known than what humans recognize. But every human contains some sort of genetic material that came from a non-terrestrial lineage.
yeah,
Is the thing. So I happen to have more Arcturian in me, but that helps me carry my sovereignty womb line genetic scaffolding into every life stream that I live.
okay. So you
So
need to really be talking to Victoria Whitney.
I
you
don't
know,
know any of these people, but maybe.
she's on Cosmic Disclosure. She talks to Emery a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is
She's
Victoria the lady with the braids?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
She did have something that I thought was really interesting on her website that I liked, and it was had to do with like your tribe.
Yep. Yep. I don't
Mm.
know if you can see it, but I threw the chat up on the screen as well. Kim's
Oh,
on
Matthias
watching.
DeStefano. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was saying it
I
backwards.
recognize. Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
dyslexic, so that's why I said it backwards.
No, no, you're good. I recognize the Matthias.
Thanks,
I
Kim.
do. Yes, yeah. I haven't actually watched anything. I don't think I've watched any of his episodes, but I've heard him talking on different things that like Guy has played, and
Yeah.
um
He's really good.
yeah, yeah. I think that everybody's amazing. I haven't had the time to really sit and follow with everyone's. I should. I should. I feel like I'm stretched so
Well, it's
thin at the
time
time.
consuming,
I am currently stretched a little thin, but I think that it's fascinating that every time I hear somebody talk about their own disclosure and their own experiences with non-terrestrial beings, whether they're light beings, whether they're Arcturian, whether they're Lyrian, Syrian, whatever it may be, that
Yeah.
we all have similar experiences and that the end result is the same. We are here to remember who we
Mm-hmm.
were before hybrid warfare happened to our code, like our genetic. material.
Code. Yeah.
So yeah, we're here to remember who we were before we fell from grace, essentially. And that's what I love is like we talk about the pre-fall, and the biblical fall was really a fall of these hybrid races. So
Okay. Wow.
yeah.
So I'm trying to think. Let's see. We have Kim on,
Hi, Kim.
and if
Sorry.
anybody else is watching, if you can say something in the chat just so I know you're there. Um, I didn't stream this to Facebook because I just wanted to make sure nobody was chatting on the YouTube channel. So I'm
I
streaming
mean,
this
if you want to
strictly.
stream it, you can. I'm fine with whatever that you feel comfortable with. I just know that like my personal
Yeah.
family is a little bit, they're like, but at the same time, like,
Yeah. So Kim had a question. She said, How did you find out? How did you find all this out? Where were you 15 minutes ago? No.
um, so I, I, trying to explain how I found all this out, it has been through a process of remembering, through a process of, um, I want to call like I like to call them downloads, sudden ahas, but you know that it's coming from an outside source, but it's you also know that the outside source is within yourself too. So, um, what my team with the Phoenix Fleetcraft has done is disclose to me as my body would allow me to have disclosure without going into like a psychotic breakdown.
Okay. So
So
talk a little bit more about this fleet team. I know you've mentioned it a few times.
okay, so
So,
I have a proximity vessel stationed above me at all times to help me stabilize. Now that we are in a different area of the photon belt, now that we are changing density, I am highly susceptible to rogue um, programming. And energy. I'm a target for negative energy, hybrid warfare, all the things. So and that breaks down to like what it in my day to day life as a human, like almost getting hit by a car all the time.
susceptible to
Um,
uh, sorry about
oops.
that.
Oh, you're good. It breaks down to just crazy near death experiences that I have to avoid all the time.
Wow. Yeah. Well, do you want to talk
A
a
lot.
little bit about I don't know, did you mention that in those Phoenix papers, did they talk about the hybrid, I can't even say the word, hybridization? Did they talk anything about
Um,
that?
I believe they touch on it a little bit, but at the time when the journals were written uh in a time where if you were like, "Oh, I'm a hybrid," like it could be very dangerous, or you would just maybe be taken and put away. I'm not exactly sure, but when the journals were first released, they were referred to as like messengers of different genetic material. Essentially, they didn't use the word hybrid so much in the Phoenix journals that I recall reading through.
Yeah.
That's not to say it may not be there. Um, but the journals really actually touch a lot more on like biblical beings and who they really are as far as their place in the cosmos and what their role was then and how it transferred into like current consciousness knowledge, because most of our biblical characters are actually just like Pleiadian human hybrids, or a lot of them were Pleiadian human hybrids, but before that you had like, it just depends because we have, lots of hybrids going down, lots of civilizations. You have Egypt, you have ancient Lemuria, you have all these times where these civilizations brought in extraterrestrial intelligence to help form what humanity should do or should be or should act like based on
Okay.
their laws that they would bring forth. Every
Yeah,
time.
I just wanted to mention to the viewers, we're talking about the Phoenix journals, and until I talked to you, I never even heard of these before.
Yeah.
But these were, just to have it up on the screen, these were I can't even see what that says. Claiming to be extraterrestrial communications from the Palladian Starfleet that was received back in the 1990s.
Yes.
And
So
there was one thing, I'll let you speak in one second, but there was one thing that I highlighted. If you're not familiar, because when you sent me these, like it was kind of overwhelming. There was so much information. So they recommended starting, you can look at this. It says recommended starting point for new readers is journal 227, so forth. So I just thought I'd throw that up there in case people go back and watch this, they can, see the information there. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, that's perfect. And that's exactly what I was getting at is I make different, so the author, the Phoenix Fleetcraft, work directly with my within my codex, within my breath line. So as I make adjustments will be made accordingly to um simpler presentation of there's a lot of information, but if you need directed information,
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain that. It's not that I'm actualizing my words. It's that as I explain something, there's a team above me making things more accessible for human
To
breakdown.
cope, to comprehend it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so what we really needed was a way to put the journals online, and because I was just sending them to people, like emailing and finding copies, purchasing copies from like whoever might have them, and they were so rare at the time that you could find one would might be like $7.99, but you the same exact journal where you might be sitting in a bookstore for $433. So
Wow.
we found a way to streamline it and put it on
But
online, and I have that link on my page for all of the
okay.
journals. However, the journals that you notated in are the ones that like they're the ones that if you want to read, you would go, oh my goodness.
Okay.
That's going to spark anybody's awakening. But everybody awakens to their own conscious capability at their own time frame in their own way. So something that might be within your scaffolding to cause you to awaken, like in your pre-written agreement, your contract, you have for every live stream, these are the things that I'm going to accomplish, this is what's going to cause this to happen, this is how I'm going to awaken. We make these agreements. So whatever is written into your agreement for you to remember, you when it breaches that when or what not breaches, but like when it crosses your consciousness and you recognize it, that's then like your own, it's
Validation that,
like deja vu, like you wrote your script already. We all
yeah.
did. We all did. But what we were was that we were fragmented by these hybrid life forms and thought forms that actualized into density and began their own agenda.
Okay.
And
Wow.
that's what we're dealing with now is the hybrid wars. And it breaks what humans can break it down to is like spiritual warfare, but it's an energy war.
No, I totally believe we're in a spiritual war right now. Sorry, I got
Yeah.
a mosquito in here.
No,
So
you're good. You're
say,
good.
get out of here. Um, yeah, because I recently received a download and it was, you hear people always saying, love and light, or they're signing their whatever, their notes, love and light. But, where there is light,
There must also be darkness.
there's shadow. Yeah.
So I love
So
that. So
I'm I'm trying to tell people, no, just love. We need more love because that's all there is love, you
we
know?
already carry, so we already carry within us everything we need to remember who we are, who we were before any kind of negative energy archon came in and said, this is what you need to be. We have that all within our own scaffolding. And it really just takes whatever's in our agreement to wake us up to start that process of remembering.
Mm-hmm.
And the soul, the remembrance of the soul is such an important part of the awakening and restoring humanity, because until people can remember how things were before there was all this surface level stuff that they're dealing with, they will always do the hard way. They will always be volatile. They will not be welcome into outer space because,
Well, they're stuck in their ego.
yeah, that we have to remove ego, but then we have to teach them and reprogram them in a way that makes sense. And to be honest, like, it is quite the damage that has been done to the human genetic uh, blueprint. It is
Yeah.
there, but the most amazing thing is that humans are also the most resilient little species. So
Amen to that.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So there's hope. Hope is never all is lost. We've already won. It's is all actually. It's like the grand experiment was seeing if we could do this, and we can. We're just
Mm-hmm.
living it out now. It's the process of knowing if we can remember our original blueprint before we fell from grace, or before it wasn't even that we fell from grace. It was like these fallen thought forms that actualized, right?
Yeah.
And so trying to understand and developing an understanding of how we go from these thought forms and these breath lines into actualization, into um, the ignition that sparks our genetic material to then take a biological form.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
But no, no, no. I'm sorry. I'm starting to think, like, what are your thoughts about, or do you have any information about the reptilians?
I have a lot of thoughts about the reptilians.
And the
There's
reason why I'm bringing this up is because, again, there's going to be folks out there that are just, this is going to be over their head. They're not going to believe it. So I'm trying to piece certain things together to help them understand. And, first of all, I do want to show, for those of you watching and you don't believe in, cloning or hybridization, Emery talked about this 10 years ago.
yeah,
And
yeah.
they thought he was crazy back then. So I'm going to show a little
He's not
clip.
crazy, no.
No, so I just want to show this little clip that it's not just us talking about this. And if you watch the news, which I've really tried to stay away from the news the last few months, but I guess when you pull up, uh, Facebook, you can't help what's in your face in your news
Right.
feed. And everyone's talking about how Biden's been cloned. So, anyways, oh, what happened? I think we just lost Chris. We just lost her. Oh,
Oop,
there you are.
sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, thought we lost you. Can you hear me? Bear with us. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear
Oh,
me?
that was weird. No, a real estate agent just tried to like call me and it froze my whole phone.
I was getting ready to text you and tell you just get off and then come back on.
What happened? I missed it. Okay,
Oh no,
sorry. Can you
I didn't play it yet. And then I'm
Oh,
like,
okay.
is
So
there
sorry.
interference? Like,
I'm sorry.
no. No. No, I was thinking maybe it was, something governmental like
Nope.
interfering.
Nope. Just your girl trying to buy some land.
That's funny. All right, so let me play this clip. It's not
Cloning's
even a
been
minute
done
long,
before
so
I even came along. They've been cloning animals for quite a while, and in the hybrid programs that I was associated with, they were cloning not only species like plants and animals, but they were also regenerating tissues of extraterrestrials and growing them, and then cloning them. And then they started cloning humans a very long time ago. It's interesting now that in the news, after talking about this a few times, that now they're coming forward. China just has been doing it forever, but in their underground facilities, cloning people and cloning, of course, you heard about, they cloned their first primate. And hey, they can clone a primate. This verifies what I'm talking about. Well, they can definitely
Clone a human.
Okay.
Wow.
It was like very warbly. It like only gave me fragmented vision screens. I think maybe we might be getting into something that's a little complex. So
Oh,
um
wow.
yeah, so we're definitely experiencing interference. But I can't, I don't exactly, I have no idea what you just played, but I will say, as far as what I know about cloning is that it takes two parts. Is that once we remember that we are reincarnated beings, um once we have activated that part of our DNA, it changes our genetic material, and that is the part that could be held for cloning if needed. I
Okay.
know it's possible. I know that a lot of us, like for me myself, I'm not a clone in the sense that I am a clone. I just carry my original genetic coding into this breath line, and that took place at the point of like I. Okay, let me explain how I was born. um,
Do tell.
Okay. So I am the result of a biological conception with a controlled ignition event that took place at the very first splitting of my cells. So at the very first splitting of my cells, my archic womb line coding was entered into my genetic material. So that ignited my ancient coding along with my current human coding. So I
Coding.
have a flesh body. Um, that was dormant until reactivated in 2023.
Okay. Wow. Kim,
So
did you get that?
we can all go back online. And I am in my original flesh blueprint and my original flesh format, which is why up until now my disclosure was not safe for me. If that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. And that's why, I wouldn't put it past having technical difficulties if somebody's trying to stop information that doesn't need to be slow dripped out yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I carry so that's part of the cool thing is like what the Phoenix fleet craft that is operating above me is called the Arc 12. They are part of the restoration grid line team, and they are stationed. I'm near Mount Shasta. I kind of have to stay with my density currently, like within these grid points, or else I experience like a breakdown. Not like a
Oh,
mental
no.
breakdown, but like a breakdown of my, like I'm subject to discomfort, headaches, bloody noses, weird little things. So if I stay within like my grid line, I do the best.
Yeah.
It's currently Mount Shasta is like in that line of grid, and so like I stay within. I don't know how to explain that. If I can see the mountain, I'm generally within a protected like
Zone.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now for them to, so like for my commander to make physical contact with me, I have to, I'm not quite ready yet. First of all, they keep telling me, I'm like, initiate the sequence, initiate the sequence. They're like, no. You
You're like,
could
yes, I'm ready.
not quite, but it's fine. I'm almost there. I also have to be in a place where the grid line can hold the density change. So for me to make full contact, it has to be within these places that are known for non-terrestrial contact because of their geographical location, because of their energy and placement,
Hmm.
and the amount of energy they can receive and send.
No, I totally get that. And it's funny because, my brother is very skeptical with all of this. Him and I can go at it, and I'm not trying to throw it down his throat, but I'm trying to, John, just be more open to it,
Yeah.
and you'll understand stuff. But
Well, the way that I look at it is like, and I think that maybe I have it easier just because I've already been ostracized or whatever, and I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
But
people,
what I was trying to say is I was trying to explain to him because he's like, if there's ETs, I want them to show up right in front of me. And I'm like,
right?
dude, it doesn't work
It
that
doesn't work
way.
like that.
First of all, you're negative and your energy will probably kill them. And he can't comprehend that. So,
It's not even so much his energy, it's the earth density, and therefore it depends on what kind of ET. So a gray alien can handle, I hate the word alien. A gray person can handle density here a little bit better than, like, for example, what I am. My particular genetic blueprint carries um I'm a light being, so it's hard to express what a light being is, because it's like if you can photograph a soul without a body, but it's an energy form that's mostly made out of plasma. So uh, I'm light being, but also Arcturian, Lyrian, Syrian hybrid. So if that makes sense, my human genetics have Arcturian, human, Lyrian, which can handle these densities. Light beings are mostly like, we carry codes, we carry like messages from, you could, what I will break it down into like a humanized thing is like, okay, we carry messages from the sun to upgrade your DNA. Now there are individuals in embodied flesh format with those codes that have existed beyond what a human mind can wrap around time, because time isn't like a real thing, it's just a construct. But if we want to talk about time, like I am 1.27 epochs old, which is like a few 100 billion Earth years, essentially.
wow.
Yeah. We don't do Earth years, because if you try to wrap your brain, you just feel hella old. I shouldn't even say it like that.
Yeah,
You'll just
time
feel
is just,
old
yeah.
and tired. But there's never not a purpose to this, right? So what I have to remember, my job is to help people remember.
So Kim had a question. Let me see if I can scroll this.
Oh, and then there was something I wanted to touch on before I lost that train of thought.
Oh yeah.
When people don't understand, or when they like ridicule us, really what it is it's their consciousness trying to compensate for what they can make sense of.
Mm-hmm.
And people will only ever understand from their current level of consciousness. So if they don't have an ability, if their mitochondria doesn't have the ability to adjust to that new information. So information can change your genetic material, like thought and spoken word, all of those things. And that's part of the secret that was erased from humans. Is that
Mm-hmm.
we were originally designed to be our own sovereign entities. So you could create from your own spoken thought. You could um, actualize things or cause things to change if you needed to. But that power has been severed
Mm-hmm.
from humans currently, because of the fall and the hybrid wars that took place. It was really an argument over the best way to
Yeah.
be, right?
And I think, consciousness too, like a lot of people haven't raised their awareness in consciousness. And I
Right.
think that plays a role into understanding this information. You
Yeah.
always hear people saying we're trying to raise the collective consciousness. But I do know that more and more people within the last probably decade have been opening up more,
Oh,
have been
absolutely.
raising their vibration.
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
so what I used to try to scream, like, not scream, but like shove the awakening down people's throats, like, this is what it really is. Why won't you just listen? But there's when I say scaffolding, what I mean by that is like what they have been encoded to receive in their lifetime, their contract, their soul contract, right?
Okay.
Their soul contract may not have a full awakening template. It may be like little bits and pieces. So even you're casting a stone into the water by raising awareness, even if it's subtle, is enough to be a key to unlock somebody else's ascension. We are living keys, and that's what those of us that are hybrids are, and that's why they sought such control over our lifelines, our breath lines, and wanted to sever them, because we are the living keys to consciousness that ultimately brings about change, which the type of change that severs control of rogue or negative life forms.
Mm-hmm. Now, Kim had a
Because we're
question.
sovereign. Sorry.
That's okay. I don't know if you can see it. She says, do you know what mission they have you doing yet?
Yes. Yes. So let me explain. My mission is to restore Archic womb line sovereignty grid lines. So it is to, let me break that down. It is to awaken and bring back the divine feminine template to the balance of Mother Earth.
Okay.
And that is not something I do on my own. Every one of us that, like, you are such a big part of that. Kim is such a big part of that. All of us, I wouldn't say that because we're women we have a step up. That's not it. I don't want to get into like sexualizing the races and anything like that, but there is a certain template that original carriers of this codex, of this womb line codex, carried, because before woman was humanized and hybridized to be a human. So humans are hybrids already, because in order for a human being to exist, they must be a hybrid of more than one, a non-terrestrial species. Let me just jot that down. So before human hybrids existed, we were able to create on our own. We didn't necessarily always need the male biological counterpart to actualize consciousness thought forms, or rebirth consciousness into existence. And that can, in certain lawful conditions, bring about a child that is non-terrestrial and seeded from non-terrestrial forms into a direct sovereign womb line codex carrier. So the mother has to have the genetic template. So we have Mother Mary, right? For example, how she was able to become pregnant with Jesus was because his father is a light being. His flesh father, his genetic father was a light being. So there are certain times when we are at a collapse or a brink of consciousness changing that pulls our energy into such despair that these reprogramming interfaces like myself are then lawfully allowed to step in to restore original breathline interfaces, to restore sovereignty back to the hybrids who are actually remembering, because the hybrids, who controls the hybrids, who control the fate of the universe, to be honest. Because if we can graduate and be welcomed into space, that's how we survive. And we are not going to be welcomed into space until we can overcome our bigotry, because humans are the most.
Well, if we can't get along with each
Exactly.
other, how are
Racism
you
is
going
such
to
a
get
joke,
along with,
because
you know?
okay, you want to poke fun at your friend who has a different colored skin than you. Well, guess what? You may have to sit at a table with somebody who's an entire different species than you, and that doesn't make them any less. And in fact, you may be the lesser species. So
No, I
it
totally
really, we have
agree.
to get over that, the bigotry and all of it, because we are only experiencing format that our brains can recognize based on our coding. We could be any color, we could be any size, we could be any way. We come
Yeah.
in original
And
blueprint that was designed for man, which is based off of the creation blueprint.
okay. I'm sitting here thinking, and we don't have to get into it, but uh, so do you believe in the elite? There's an elite that's trying to suppress us from, oh, to this information, remembering who we are.
Yes.
Because I do. I
So
think
I
there's
will
an
I will
entity
get
out
into
there.
that. There are distorted hybrid races who are carrying out old agendas and don't know why because of their programming. There are distorted hybrids that are a result of that, who are human hybrids that are half human, half. And now I like to now I'll get into the reptilian thing. Okay, I love.
Okay.
They're grouchy. They're stinky. They're crusty. I love them. I love them only because of the fact that they are so strong, so resilient, and they gave us so much of our regenerative genetic material. Without them, we would not exist the way that humans would not be able to overcome so much genetically without that
Mm-hmm.
blueprint. Because of their susceptibility to negative programming, they have been labeled bad versus good. It's no different than the live stream I lived out that was labeled as Lilith or.
Well, I think, just like people, there's
There's
good
good
people,
people,
there's
there's
bad
bad people.
people.
There's good people, there's
Whatever
bad within
species
every
you
race
are.
line. So it doesn't matter. You could
Yeah,
have
exactly.
there's good people, there's bad people. What there is no, not all grays are have a negative agenda. Most of them are just trying to understand how, because they lack humor and certain things. They just want an experience. A lot of them don't have this I want to harvest your DNA thing. Quite frankly, it's
Mm-hmm.
more that to be able to have a human lifeline experience is something that is just super sought after. It's very hard, but it's also very hard to do because Earth is a school for terrestrial and non-terrestrial life forms to learn how to cohabitate and to remember who they
Mm-hmm.
were before they existed in this particular life frame. So it was always meant to be a living library of collective consciousness. And that's what's so beautiful about Earth is it carries a crystalline structure to be able to do that.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this. Kim was asking a question. I know people who stifle their abilities, I guess because they're not ready yet. They say it scares them. I would love to have their abilities. I think, Kim, we all
Yeah.
have abilities. It's just a matter of dedicating time to understand them, doing research, and figuring out, you know, what your
Absolutely.
superpower is,
So much of that. I
right?
think you have two facets to that. You have what your programming is and what you've been taught to be ashamed of or to not be ashamed of. So first off, we take kids, we put them in schools for years and tell them this is what you're supposed to do, this is what you're supposed to achieve, and this is the goal. This is the human template of your goal of a life. And none of it has ever made sense to me. I've always fought very hard against every I've learned the hard way every single step of the way until I finally realized I'm supposed to be different for a reason. There are much easier
Yeah.
ways, and once you realize that you are your own sovereign, you carry your own sovereignty, and when you wake up to that, it's really breaking the programming, and it's in here and it's in here. um there are things that help with it by you know keeping yourself as true to yourself as possible. But
Mm-hmm.
people who are afraid.
Well, it's like your name. It's like
No,
your
go ahead. If people who are
sorry.
afraid, it's really more like they're fearful of any shame that could come from their embodiment, and it's the fear of the unknowing next, because as people awaken, they usually don't know exactly why they're awakening. They don't have all the tools and all the pieces yet. So they're just having to go by with whatever their template has written for them to pick up along the way. And a lot of times we experience that as like deja vu or a knowing that we're in the right place at the right time. But it all boils down is to like learning yourself, number one. But we're, like I said, if you are born into a family that must put you in school from 8 to 5, then you're going to have your pre-programming set. And unfortunately, the reason why so many people never reach ascension is because they don't have the programming to ascend. They aren't taught how. It's not something that is even put upon their scope. So every time a soul perishes isn't even like the right term, but anytime a soul leaves this place or crosses over, they get born right back into density because they didn't finish their contract. And it keeps a couple of very wealthy families in power, and they've been in power for a very long time.
Yeah. And what I was going to mention was when you were talking about, you know, you're born and you're already programmed, like even your name, like you're being told this is your name, but is that really who you are?
Most of us,
You know what I mean?
are like our original, and I was just getting into that with my Pleiadian oversight. His name is a lot more intricate, but I call him Salator, which sounds scary. It's not.
Salator. Isn't that a cartoon?
His name is Sariel, but he has a lot of, so original names were like fire sounds. They come from like a different, they're more like sounds instead of like actual words. Yeah. So
Words.
like
Yeah.
our names represent like breaths, like the sound of breathing, and like just different sounds. I like the self-realization of sounds that could be actualized. So it's actually really pretty, but it's like beyond cuneiform tablets, beyond ancient Sumerian texts. Like we're talking ages beyond before that ever was even put into a concept. Yeah.
Wow.
So he does have an interesting name, but yeah. So their job really is to like I said, help hold me stable, but also to help me remember in a way that doesn't overload my system. That way I can relay it to everybody else. And I definitely went off track with the question that you were asking.
Yeah.
Sorry, my child's in the room waving
No,
papers
no, no.
at me.
I
What
was
are
just
you doing? Yes, you may. Not right now. I need you to go.
Only the first grade boys I know their names.
No, we've already handled this, and I need you to go play in your room until I'm done.
I-A-N.
That is correct. So she said
She can
Ian.
say hi.
She's trying to spell she is having a birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh,
It's
happy!
in July,
When's your
but
birthday?
we're doing it a month early, and she wants to invite a
Oh,
list of first grade boys.
What? I'm
So
only
you
Aw.
can 3.
Well, you can put their names down.
I want you to have the best
Hang on a
birthday.
candle.
What do you say? She said she hopes you have the
Thank
best
you.
birthday.
You're
Sorry, I'm so
welcome,
sorry.
hon. No, no, we're
I
just
definitely went off track there. What was the question that Kim had asked?
well, I'm trying to bring her on. I think she was like she was in the garden, but I think she might come on. But she was just talking about I
Oh,
don't
it's
know
all
if you
about
could
fear.
read it. She was talking about it's all about fear. And you talked, oh, here she is. Here, we'll bring her on. So, yay, Kim. Can
She's
you
just
hear us, Kim?
celebrating. There's too much of our our energy on here.
Oh, let's try this again.
There we go.
You.
Hey, girl.
Yeah.
So isn't this an
I
interesting
love
topic
it.
tonight?
Kristin, you never talk about all this stuff. I want to hear about it all the time.
I haven't been allowed to talk about any of it. As humans are like becoming more consciously aware, my permittance changes as to what I'm allowed to disclose also. So it's been an interesting thing to navigate.
That's crazy. I'm just hanging out in my garden listening to you guys. So carry on.
I love your garden.
No, thanks for jumping on.
I don't have
Um,
on. I'm just kind of like
So,
winging it, but who cares?
oh no, you're beautiful.
oh, you look beautiful.
So go back to what you commented about fear and people being afraid to come forward. Really, we just have to show them that they are loved. They are not going to be ostracized where we stand, and ultimately they will come forward because their truth is going to require them to. They will get to a point where they cannot stand anymore in their third density, because they are not meant to live there. And so when they come forward and want to share these experiences, we just have to be there with open arms and help guide them through the restoration phase of their awakening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. I
perfect.
get that. Can you guys hear me?
So you weren't able to see Emery's clip,
It
right?
did
You
get
said it got
distorted.
all
Yeah, I'm not. If
distorted.
you want to play it again, that would be cool. I'm not sure if it'll. Do you have a way to like
Well, what I want.
word it to me?
Oh, he was just talking about how, cloning has been done years and
Yeah.
years, like a long time ago. And, then finally, I guess this was about 10 years ago, China came out and they did their first cloning of the first primate. And he was saying, if they're doing that, they're cloning
Yeah.
people. It was basically
So
that.
cloning is something that I don't like the word clone, but it's something that we have had. We've had the technology for and lost, had and lost, had and lost numerous times throughout civilization. Atlantis harnessed that technology. Egypt harnessed the technology. And the
Yeah.
Vatican, I don't like to talk bad about, only because I was actually baptized Catholic, and my godmother actually works for the Vatican. But I will say this is that I don't personally like I don't associate with any one religion, first of all, because a religion's different than what I believe in. I believe that we are all very important. We are all sovereign codex carriers of a piece of this big puzzle that will restore original grid lines, right? But I know that they have had the tools to, I would say on the darker side of things, to cloning and reincarnation. What they have learned is how they have used their, I don't know how to explain this. There are species, there are times when the technology of cloning has been used for the good of humanity and restoring genetic material, and there are times when it was used to bring the fall of
Yeah, in a negative
so
sense. Exactly, yeah.
while some of those things have been kept very secret by, like, they are in the Vatican archives, when they initiated some of these processes, and they may not have understood that they're what we would refer to as highly, I don't even want to say that word that I'm I don't want to say satanic, but they result to hybrid restoration lines and methodology that is against what we would consider lawful within the Council of Nine.
Mm-hmm. No, and you know, I'm with you on that because you know, my perspective as far as just stuff that I've researched and you know, there is a lot of things going on behind the doors of the Catholic, you know, uh I don't want to say church, but the
So what
Catholic,
happened
what's the word I'm
was
looking for?
Rome was very
Yeah,
powerful. Like
that's
this
one of
is what I can. So yeah, Rome was extremely powerful, but needed somewhere to place the power and the money. So they kind of fell into this church structure and overtook the Catholic Church. And so Rome never fell. Rome is the Catholic Church. And so they have kept their own lineage, and they are tied. They would have more ties to ancient serpent lineage.
Yeah,
Right.
the reptilians.
However,
Yeah.
I
And you know, what I think is interesting is when, you know, you see photos of inside of certain I don't know if this is at the which church it is, but where the popes go,
right,
it's a serpent. The windows, like you can
because they
see it.
know
Like
what
it
they carry some truth, and that's that the serpent was the original. The serpent held the original genetic blueprint for restoration, and
mhm.
rejuvenation, and also the serpent was an image that we used pre-fall to associate with kundalini energy activation. So the serpent in itself is symbolic, and then it was
Mhm.
tied to this image during Eve's fall. Eve is a concept, more than she is an actual living person, but I will get into that later. During Eve's fall, the image of the serpent, which was actually originally a guardian being, which represented restoration and resiliency, and infinity. It was then turned into this
Mhm.
negative, slithering on its belly type of negative image associated with disgrace and falling, when that's not necessarily,
Mhm.
it's not the truth. It's just how we have perceived that. It's how we assigned that
So,
role to the serpent, again, from our own, so we can understand it.
yeah. But, you know, one thing that always plays in the back of my mind is and trying to do more research and trying to understand, you know, and of course watching Cosmic Disclosure and listening to the different folks that go on there to tell their story.
Can
Um,
you let Phoenix out, please?
you know, getting back to one of the challenge coins, that's I don't know what they're called, the coins that your father had.
I have
I call them
no
challenge
idea. I
coins
never
because that's
found
what my
them.
dad
I've
had.
never. So my father stayed deployed for most of my life, and I did not know. I
Yeah.
remember I played with a drone one time that he had set up in his home office. Now my dad had key cards to NORAD, and I don't know that I can like legally say that out loud, but so my dad's access was very,
That's
very
okay.
sophisticated. And I remember at one point in time, his home office, he had a flight, what I assumed was a flight simulator set up. And I hopped on and played with that for a second, realized that it was a drone that had been stationed somewhere that
Yeah.
he was remotely operating. Yeah, those are his coins. And he was
Yeah.
pissed.
So go
But he
ahead.
didn't talk about it. I was just like, get the hell out of my office. What are you doing?
Yeah. Well, the one thing that caught my attention with these coins, you know, and I was trying to find any information I could, is this one, the honey badger, Semper in
Punya.
Pugana,
I don't know what that
Punia.
means.
All
I just
right.
know.
So I looked it up. The Latin meaning, semper impugnia, translates always in battle or always fighting. So, that led me to, I want to play, hopefully you'll be able to see this clip. And this is where I can't stop thinking about, are we really in this war with the
Yes.
Dracos? Or not all Dracos, but Randy Kramer talks about, this is only a 20-second clip. Let me
Can
just
I
play
pause
it,
you for
but
2
then I want to
seconds?
play another clip.
Okay, so what
Oh,
we're not
yeah.
in a war with the Dracos because any individual could have a potential to carry draconian lineage. We are in a war with draconian rule, which is the thought form that the draconians set in place to harness control spiritually, monetary, and genetically over human beings. Sorry, keep going.
Okay. No. Thanks for
I would
clarifying
say
that.
we
All right, so I'm going to
probably
play.
started the
This is just a
eradication of the
20-second clip.
draconians within Terran space in the late 90s or early 2000s. And from what I understand, there's less than 100 of them on the surface of the Earth right now, and they're being hunted down.
I don't know why it won't allow me to see any of these.
Oh, you
it can
couldn't see
it. I
that?
can't hear it. It just warbles out, and it just shows distorted pixelations of the frames changing.
Yeah, I couldn't. It just didn't play for
Huh.
me.
It didn't play for you
But
either?
I heard
That's
that
weird.
we don't have to worry about them Dracos because
No, they're not in control. They've actually been out of power for some time, but they're what they did left PTSD is generational trauma that they've done to the humans for so long that now we have to teach the humans how not to think like that.
wasn't there a barrier?
Yeah.
I hear places, but something about a barrier being put up.
So the barriers that I'm aware of that what we are being pulled up are more like gravitational stabilizers due to what's going on with our proximity placement in the photon belt of things, but also there is the barriers. So we're not to say any sovereign interface can't at any point in time go rogue is something that we have to account for within the council, the high council, because you have to make sure that we're protecting all of our energy lines at all times. So what there are energy veils that are put up, but when we get into these fallen races and breath lines, they even them have their own contract for how long they can manipulate over or have power over life streams, and so they're at the end of their life stream contract anyways. So
Yeah.
they're not permitted and they don't. It's like all of a sudden they're a non-issue. I don't know how to explain that. They're with the issue that we stand that we always have to make sure we're protected against is any rogue kind of. They're still, we call them parasites, energy parasites, rogue thought forms that are still kind of hooked onto that fallen archetype that can come in and distort things. Will they ever be able to take over and do what they've done? No, that's not allowed ever again. There will never be another fall like we experienced.
But then aren't there reptilian Earth?
Yeah.
I've heard of that too.
Yeah, many. I've dated them. Some of them. I'm sorry. There are many. There are all kinds of hybrids on Earth. Earth primarily is consistent upon hybrids who just do not know they're hybrids. Most people on Earth are a higher genetic. Well, all people are hybrids. of some kind of, because human beings were created from extraterrestrial genetic material.
Mm-hmm. And again, like I keep bringing this up because I want viewers, we know what we're talking about. There's going to be people out there that are like, I don't believe this stuff. So I'm just trying to give them something to grasp on and say, you know what, maybe there is something to this. With your dad having the honey badger coin, I found
Yeah.
extremely interesting. The word semper, in it means always, and what did it say? Always the fight, always fighting, always in battle. Then I know you couldn't hear Randy Kramer, but he was talking about how, we've eradicated most of the draconians in the early
Yeah.
2000s. And with, some of the coins, I can't remember which one it was that your dad had was like in 2003. And we didn't even, and it had Space Force on it, but we didn't even start the Space Force until 2019.
Well,
So,
the documented Space Force.
well, no. We know there was a Space Force. I'm
Right.
saying the public didn't know about the Space Force. However, wait, hold on one second. So I want to show this clip. I know you guys can't hear it, but when people rewatch this, they're going to see it. But David Wilcock, came out this year about Space Operations Command, came out with this this, what do you call it? Like a patch for them. And it has semper something, but it was always the hunter. So let me just play, just bear with me for 1 minute. Let me play this. Let me know if you can hear it afterwards, but I just think this is important to show the viewers if they can watch it.
You may not have caught this week was this revealing poster from Space Operations Command. Now, if you've ever heard of the phrase in the Marines, Semper Fidelis, it means always faithful. This particular Space Operations Command poster says Semper Venator, which means always the hunter. Now, the first thing I want you to notice is the constant repetition of the Star Trek communicator wedge shape, which looks sort of like a flying triangular UFO reverse engineered craft. And I've actually heard from insiders that, yes, some of their craft look like this. Notice that you have on the left in the badge that there's these different craft, and there's 3 of them that have red lines behind them. And where is it that they're going? They're heading towards the constellation Orion. And in fact, one of these 3 ships is heading straight into Rigel, which is on the bottom right of the constellation Orion. And my own insiders have confirmed that this is the headquarters of the evil reptilians that are trying to conquer our planet. So if you look down at the bottom, you see the wedge-shaped flying craft at the bottom is flying into the bottom right area. There it is, of Orion. That is Rigel. That is the reptilian alien headquarters. Do you really think this is an accident? Do you really think they didn't intend to say that they are always the hunter? No, they are hunting the reptilians, and they're hunting them back to their own home.
I don't know if you were able to hear that.
I wasn't able to hear.
Were you able to hear it, Kim?
Well, I could hear it through your computer, but I'll rewind. I'll look at it later. Sure. But can you tell us what the basic gist was?
So the secret or the Space Command Center came out with this poster, and it was a photo of, it looked like a craft, like a triangular craft. And in the craft was the constellation Orion's Belt. And in the craft there was Orion's Belt, and one of the stars, Rigel, is apparently the reptilian headquarters. And they had an arrow of where they were going to. So it was just, between that and what Randy Kramer talks about. And I'm not saying all reptilians or, Dracos are evil, but there is something going on with this, whatever you want to call it, elite cabal. trying to
What's
suppress
going on
humanity.
from what I can currently understand and what I'm allowed to speak on, is that we have our military being directly influenced by whichever alien race they've chosen to contract with and they've done the most work with. Now we know that that is the Greys. We know that the Greys may have an agenda to stop the reptilians because we have reptilian bases all over. We have Grey bases. They are both competing for human genetic material to continue on their lineages. However, the Greys are in a tighter place because they have totally like set aside like reproduction and vanity and all the things that we would consider important. The Greys have minimized all down to like taking over and functionality of things, not necessarily in an evil way, but like functionality to the point where all of joy is lost, all love is lost, all emotion is pretty much lost. Now reptilians are kind of on the other side of that. Is they're incredibly strong, they're an incredibly old species, where they are limited, unlike the Greys. The Greys are more limited genetically. They're failing, so they need to bring another component into their genetic material and able to continue on their species like long term. However, it both boils down to a facet of humanness that they both need in order to evolve, that they don't have in their primary states. So what the Greys lack in certain things like love and emotion, so do the reptilians lack. They cannot. Reptilians are unable to emotionally evolve past a certain point. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad, but they are unable to. They lack the genetic material to get past a certain evolutionary point, which is why originally we all agreed to go into these hybridized programs to create this sovereign, perfect individual that was biological, that could reproduce, but also reach what it meant to be godlike or living in a higher state of consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I remember like hearing about, as you move through dimensions, when you hit, I don't know, sixth, seventh, eighth dimension, and I'm not talking about a place, you know what I'm talking about, a stage of consciousness, you do lose you're more light, I guess, but you don't have the emotions
So sort
attached.
of, and yes and no.
And
So
and I kind of like, maybe you can answer this. And I kind of heard that like some of these Greys, because they got to that level, they want to come back and experience. They miss the experience that they had when they were, an, on Earth or
yeah,
an Earthling.
so there's some of that for sure. So the highest dimensional beings do exist more in light forms or plasma formats. That is just it's a crystalline structure that it consists of genetic coding, and it's basically your soul's envelope, right? It's called a plasma lattice, but I'm still trying to understand what the
Okay.
heck that means. I'm like, what do you mean about my plasma lattice? Okay, it's whatever.
Starting to, are you understanding how important we are? I mean, we're talking about aliens, reptilians, Pleiadians, Arcturians, but they are all wanting to be part of
Oh, absolutely. Because we were
love.
sorry.
The Greys were once like us. In fact, some people say they were us, and they can't reproduce because of the very simple fact that hormones that give emotions and love and sadness, even anger, those are all components from having hormones.
Right.
So I think this is hormones. They're trying to get hormones back, and
They can't.
So we special. We're a beautiful, beautiful species, and we're very unfortunate. Got to take the good with the bad, and there's some pretty negative things about us too. But I don't think we're giving ourselves enough credit.
Right. So once we realize like the scope of what we are capable of when we have been decalcified, when we come into our remembering, and when our genetic structure can remember its crystalline components, then we reactivate our sovereign, like, and what I mean sovereign means self-governing. Like, I am not controlled by any, there is no entity that that I have to submit to, that I like, we are all individual, sovereign. We stem from a sovereign maternal breath line. So when you remember that, you remember at the core of you. And I think that's what's so important to say, like, because men have been at the root, masculine figures, whether it doesn't matter if they're what breed or race they are, they're men. No, I shouldn't be like that. That's not what I mean in a bad way, but they have a way of handling things that that the maternal line does, that carries differently. So while I think that if you took all the women in the world and asked them to really search who they were, who they could remember their truest self to be before they were told ever to be anything, and put us all together, I do think that that would be a more harmonious union, because we are the ones that birth these beings into existence. We are the ones that watch as they learn, as they struggle, as they change, as they evolve. The masculine role has always been to chase the stability financially, or structurally, right? While we are the spiritual component. And so really what we are looking at is, yes, it's a hybrid war. Yes, there's all these different facets of beings, and reptilians versus grays, and we all extraterrestrials in their without having human counterparts involved, lack what humans have. So every I mean, whether you're think about the light beings that are watching over us, that wish to goodness that they could just have density enough to step in and say, you are loved, stop doing whatever this is or that is, or seeking this in the bottom of that pit, or allowing this to happen to your flesh suit. Like, imagine if all of the light beings could just step in, and but they can't. That's why this is the grand experiment, is remembering who you were before you were told who to be, right? And so it seems so complicated, but it's actually not, when we break it down to, we know the ways for the last several 100,000 years that has gotten us power and money, and we know exactly where it's led us. Now let's look at what, taking apart all the things that we decided to focus on that made us different, let's figure out the similarities. And truth be told is that there is no extraterrestrial race that can go on forever without human genetics. And there is no human race that can go on forever without an extraterrestrial intervention. And that's what's so beautiful about it, because if we don't have non-terrestrial intervention helping us, then we cease to exist, because this planet can't stabilize without outside not interference, but without outside. Yeah.
Help.
I think of it as like a hug from the universe, but really it's like a big plasma envelope that protects us from, like, just even like nuking each other. I mean, the white hats are stationed all over the place to help stabilize what has gone on for so long, under this like sleep state spell that humans have been under, and now that matrix is breaking apart. And so the last several years we've actually witnessed a fast forwarding of that crumbling, because as these other souls awakenings were delayed, everything was kind of put in this like standstill, warby like state where it only furthered our confusion.
But don't you,
But
Chris, don't you think that part of the reason that they're here so much is maybe because of this AI threat? That supposedly they're saying in like 300 years the population will be reduced significantly. Like right now we have 8 billion people, and we'll be down. Just people say 100 million in like 300 because of this AI that's coming. And I wonder if they're here because of that, because of what you were saying, that we're non-sustainable and there's a danger in our precious thing being destroyed.
yes and no. So everything that is about to happen and has happened has already been written. It is all part of waiting to see if it plays out as it was written. So when we were separated and fell from all of the hybrid wars, all of the stuff that has already taken place, like consciousness wrote it all into existence already. So we are, because time isn't linear and it's not actually real, we experience things sometimes before and sometimes after they happen in a physical sense. So what we have is really really the help of the Galactic Federation. I call the there's a lot of different councils. There's the Intergalactic Council of Worlds. There's the Council of Nine. There's the Arcturian Council. There's every which council you want. I mean, it's just like the United Nations, but for aliens, I
I want
guess.
to come meet these people. Can I come meet these people with you sometime?
So like, but it boils down to, you have white hats and you have people who are part of this negative agenda. There is no one on the native agenda that's permitted to be within Earth's structure, and that was agreed upon a long time ago. So essentially you have these awful roles that have been just turned off. There is no more. And it even went in people. Like, you might come across somebody that you thought was an awful, that you got like really bad vibes from, that suddenly you come across that just doesn't carry that energy anymore. They may just be a hybrid of whatever race was to carry out that generational
Yeah.
yuck. Like, they don't even know why they're upset. And so that's why we have this, we're still watching it unfold, these acts of things that we wouldn't even think of. What it is are these rogue thought forms still getting through the matrix, but they're playing out their final with no power. It's like watching a self-sustained dumpster fire.
Okay. Did you get that,
It
Kim?
just harkens back to Putin and Trump and the wars, and
They are still very, very much being controlled mentally, all of them, and they all know their place. I would say Putin probably knows his place and knows and understands the order of the cosmos far more than Trump does. If he understood, if Trump had the understanding of consciousness. Now, I'm not saying whether they're good or bad. This is not about being good or bad. This is just
right.
their own understanding of what's going on. I believe that he would not. I think he would be more impeccable with his word. I think that
Not Pakistan and India, it's Gaza and Israel. The whole world is imploding, it seems, and it feels like something is coming that is just
it is the crumbling. So what's happening, and I shouldn't say that yet. What we will see is, yes, a massive decrease in population, but it is by default, and it is what they are already contracted. Like, the people who are, and it sounds awful, but they are in that soul agreement to have that be what is in their live stream. That has it's in their agreement, just like the blacks were
It's gonna
it was
happen
part of
no
their
matter what.
soul contract to be enslaved. It is just part of their soul contract. So what we're watching is really a dismantling of the old matrix, and we will reprogram it with sovereign breath lines and children who are able to carry that higher density codex. The new children that are being born on this planet currently carry the genetic scaffolding to be the bridge between heaven and earth, essentially, if we could break it down into a concept that humans could understand.
Wow.
But they have to have someone to teach them, which is where us ladies come into play.
Right.
I'm not that I threw you into that role subjectively, but because I am telling you, like, that's what you're gonna be all, that's our role, is guiding people and helping them through their awakening process. And it took me so long. I had so much darkness and debris to get through, and I carry that still through me, but it comes out now as a lot like sarcasm or crusty dry humor that I shouldn't blurt out when it comes out. But I think that the most beautiful thing is that no matter what, we're going to be okay. It is written into our existence that we are going to be okay. It is written into some of our genetic material that we won't even meet death in our flesh suits the way that we have seen death meet others. We are coming into an age where if we can activate enough of our light coding, we may be able to avoid a flesh death, but still keep our bio density and use it when we need it. So there's a lot of interesting things. I know that like somebody posted a photo of like a med. They were like, oh, this is the new med buds. It was a light being med bed, which is a plasma chamber, which is totally different than like what most people are going to go into for their med bed. Only human light being hybrids are going to need plasma recalibration chambers. But I thought that was really interesting because I'm like, oh, I know exactly what that is. And actually, and don't worry about that unless you're this, but,
So the photo that you saw, because I know which photo you're talking about, that was actually
it's a plasma recalibration chamber. So what I am, I'm a light being human hybrid, with, like I said, Arcturian, Lyrian, and Syrian genetic background. And even there's reptilian remnant in my genetic material even, but all of that was formulated to make me as strong as I am and able to resist what they would tell me. They tell me it's to keep me from being dismantled, which we could say prevents my destruction.
So do you have availability to use one, or how do you know about these beds, and when do you get the chance to?
I've not been in a plasma recalibration chamber yet because I am still in my density reformulation phase. So my genetic material is currently changing. My face is currently changing. So like you'll see me, what I've been told, this is what I've been told, is I'll have subtle changes to my like physical characteristics because I am shedding all of the generational distortion that has happened through multiple lifetimes, which we carry into our genetic material and we carry it onto like the surface of our skin. And so as that process happens and my mitochondria react to a more crystalline structure, I will begin to emit a different type of photonic reverence. So I'll glow a little bit, like, but and what I need for food is different. I don't need like earth food anymore the same way. Very dense foods make me very, very sick. I know I've been posting like about being in and out of like the hospital because of these autoimmune disorders, and really what it is which I feel embarrassed. What it honestly is that I am no longer able to process like dense things. I don't do well with like red meats, anything that's like suffered, anything that's held a low vibration will just make me sick. My body
Yeah.
rejects it. So like I can eat berries and things.
But you know what? I'm saying there's a lot of people that I come across that are they must be evolving, because my husband
Yeah.
Dave is the same way. We were like, he
No.
cannot eat red meat anymore.
As
And there's a few other people that I know are having issues, and they have to totally
the
change
reason
the way
for
they
that
eat.
is because we have so many people coming in to this existence that will rely on that way of living, that we are changing those who are receptive to the change by grid line lock already. So if your
Okay.
genetic material and your coding permits you to evolve spiritually, even without your knowledge, if you are like, and that's what's wild, is like you truly are called to service, not based on like if you think you're qualified. So it really is about your blueprint, and who you were before you were told how to be. But basically, if you carry that,
Well,
if you carry
remembering
that,
too, your soul's
your body
contract.
will
Yeah.
automatically change with the density, because we're changing the density of the atmosphere to be able to dwell here and have our children dwell here, and have it be a healthy place.
Mhm.
And as we work those old things out of our genetics, like there's still going to be like reptilian people. Like I've had reptilian people try to go, okay, well, I'm going to give up meat. Like, okay, well, that's not in your genetic coding. Like, you try to give up meat and they malfunction. I'm like, it
Okay.
really just depends on your coding, but also it's not saying that we're going to get rid of all these beings that aren't compatible, but the ones who have the genetic material to be compatible will with ease already. So like with your husband, he's just going to naturally become more compatible to what Earth's resonance will require him to be, which
Yeah.
includes lighter foods. Yeah,
Yeah, just more
exactly.
clean eating.
Clean. We
Yeah.
break it down to clean eating, no chemicals. We don't. There's already so many chemicals in all the things that we eat already, that it's almost like I think, and I remember Emery saying this too, and we were just like, whoa. We were talking about this one time outside Mount Shasta, like this thing he did, cosmic disclosure group talk thing that he did. Anyways, so basically, oh my gosh, it just yeah.
You're talking about clean
So
eating, and then
basically,
he was talking.
all the stuff that's on the surface of the earth is like really unsafe for a lot of us anyways, and so we already like the oversight, and all the councils above us trying to maintain our integrity are doing so much work trying to clean up the cloud seeding, trying to clean up all the crap that was put in our food, all of the stuff, so that as it enters into our streams, it's not causing all this cancer. Unfortunately, we are still seeing massive amounts of that stuff take place because it is written into this big, the whole oversight is we're going to witness the fall and rise
Mm-hmm.
of righteousness again. And it's part of that falling of righteousness where we remember.
Yeah, you
It
have
just
to
has
have
to
it.
happen.
Yeah.
And so there is hardly any food left on the surface of the earth that's even like really edible for humans, to be honest. Yeah, like it's all not that great. But we have a lot of help with teams who are working outside of Earth and inside of Earth to keep some of that integrity, and that will become like food that's available to people as they change in their density. Also,
Mm-hmm.
we are able to clean up all of the gosh,
Well, Emery told Kim and I, remember
it
on your
would take
first
something, I think, like
podcast?
15 minutes to make Earth sanitary and like clean again after but what we have to do is, in order to get the humans to a point where we don't have to just evacuate them from the surface of the planet and then freak a bunch of them out and cause them to like have panic and stroke and heart attacks and all the other things,
Yeah.
is either awaken them slowly, like what we're doing, little bits of this, little bits of that, manipulating with it while they're not conscious, which is like removing, it's the cleanup that the teams are already doing, removing negative toxins from the food that you eat as you eat it. There's
Is that Twilight? Sorry.
No,
Is that Twilight?
Twilight is. I do Twilight.
Is that
Oh, he left
what I was
a minute.
what Emery had mentioned is there's actually a company in Virginia. It's not out yet, but he gave us the link and I looked them up. They're in the process of turning trash into clean
I
water.
believe that.
And it's through ET, some type of ET
I believe that.
technology. Do you remember that, Kim?
Yeah, it quantum.
So
It goes in and undergoes a quantum process and comes out nothing.
Yeah. I know that that's a bit
yeah.
of what Ron is trying to do with his own water up here in Mount Shasta too. This quantum water is really really a beautiful concept. And when it becomes technology that's widely available, we won't have to just stick to spring water. Yeah,
I know. It's scary. It's scary going to the store nowadays. I'm like, bought watermelon and I'm like, this is not watermelon. This is
a
like
lot of the
synthetic
food is
watermelon.
genetically modified. Most all of it, it's on some level. And even the water, if it doesn't say it came from a spring, it's repurposed water, which is really gross.
Oh, I did a whole water testing. I went out and bought all these different, probably 5 or 6 different brands of bottled water versus my tap water, and I tested everything. And it's do you guys have like a Sam's Club?
I have like Walmart, but since I'm so close to the mountain, I just get like spring water from Mount Shasta.
Yeah. It was like the Sam's Club's water. That's the only thing I'll buy was the best out of all of them. Like, don't drink Dasani. Don't drink
Dasani is like
Ozark.
recycled shower
Don't drink.
water.
It's so bad for you. It's so acidic.
Dasani is what happens
So
when we
and
flush
my husband
the
has
toilet and they fish everything out of it. I'm so sorry for saying that. I found that out about Dasani way before I ever awakened, way before I ever cared about nutrition. I was so disgusted.
Yeah. Oh, I know. But I know Emery has talked about, I think they're working on, he's so busy doing so many different things, but he's working on, I think, a home water filtration
I believe that.
system
He's
for your
there.
home.
He's incredibly
So-
intelligent, and having had the opportunity to work with hybridized life form, and I don't know that I'm allowed to disclose this about Emery. He himself is a hybridized life form.
He's talked about it.
In order to, I don't catch everything, but in order to, in order for him to have had the involvement that he already had to have some genetic coding that would allow him to go into that field without complete disassembling of his molecular structure.
Yeah, when he was a little. Yeah, he spent a lot of time at night with them apparently, and they were upgrading him, giving him downloads, and
and that's very much like what he described. what he described that in that instance is very much like what I go through with my oversight as I need to upgrade, as I need downloads, as I need information that keeps me safe or relevant or protected, or as I want to understand things, I will get different downloads and different adjustments to my molecular structure. For example, I got very sick a couple of years ago, and I had a fungal infection that was missed for a very long time and ended up in my blood. And doctors didn't know how to fix it. There wasn't a special medicine that they could put me on. They could fix it. And at that point in time, I had so my medical oversight team consists of Pleiadians and Arcturians, but if there's something that they can't fix, then the Mantid people do step in, and they are like, the Mantis beings are like the medical engineers of space. I don't know
That's
how
what
to.
Emery talks about.
They're
Yeah.
so good. I mean, it's off-putting the first time you see one because you're like, oh, and I don't know why they are insistent upon wearing jackets. Like, hello, your body is massive. Why do you need to put a coat on? But it's fine.
Kim had a question.
How do we apply for this healthcare?
Yeah, I don't know, but it's
Seriously.
better than human healthcare because I'll tell you what, I don't exactly know what they did. I just know they stepped in. They were able to, with the help of human medicine, I don't know that I needed chemo, but I was on it for a minute. With the help of human medicine, remove the fungus from my bloodstream, but my blood type changed.
Wow.
Yeah. So
What is your blood? Do you know your blood type?
Yeah, I was B positive when my daughter was born, and up through that point in time, and now I am O positive.
Wow.
Which when I first questioned that, I was like, that's not possible. But however, when restabilization happens, O positive blood carries components from every genetic counterpart. So O positive blood is really just blood that is compatible with any species for the most part.
Wow. Kim, do you know your blood type?
I do. Yeah, I do know what it is.
I'm looking mine up real quick. Where is mine? Oh, I'm O positive.
You had to look it up?
Yeah.
Have it on the computer?
Oh, no, it's in my notes because I keep forgetting. Whenever somebody asks me, I'm like,
I'm getting bite by mosquitoes.
Oh no. I know we're gonna have to wrap this up soon, but Kim, thank you for jumping on. This is awesome.
Yeah, and thank you so much. Yeah, I'm not surprised, Michelle, that you're O positive. A lot of your blood type really, your blood type from what I understand currently based is a lot has to do with your parents, but also, it is connected to your consciousness in a way that people carry that genetic material through their density. So whether you're A positive, O positive, AB negative, RH negative, any of those things, it's all about your blueprint. And for me, O positive blood was the best way for me to be able to stay in my current density format.
Okay.
Whereas before I didn't have O positive blood, I at all. It wasn't even O blood.
Yeah, you went from B to O.
Yeah.
I did know, I did learn something. My battery's dying, but let me just say very short. Be careful when you're giving blood. I've recently heard that your blood, the white blood cells they serve as your best form of immunity. And when you give blood, you're losing white blood cells. So you can't, to donate blood, you can tell them please just take 1 vial or half a vial or whatever. You have to give 3 or 4 vials of blood. So
Yeah.
hang on to your.
Absolutely.
A lot of
Absolutely.
people, they'll just give the plasma and they get their blood back.
I've
Not-
done both. I can't give blood anymore because of my my history. I've
never given blood before.
I'm a trafficking survivor, so they don't allow you to give blood and once you've had intravenous intervention.
Yeah.
Just even though like I don't carry any diseases, the chance that somebody, like if it wasn't me, for example, the chance that somebody could bring in something like hepatitis or something else into a scenario is too high for them to want to
Take the
if
chance.
if you've had tattoos, if you can't even like you have to like you can't even have had a tattoo in the last year if you want to give blood in certain areas, just because of certain risks that they associate it with. So
Yeah.
because of my stuff and have like consistently needed some sort of medical intervention, I just don't even give blood. I'm already like I've already been on like the receiving end of it, so it's not something I ever thought about. But I have done the plasma donation, and what that does is like returns your blood back to your body after they remove the plasma. However, I think that as we evolve and come into our awareness, and then our medical technology evolves and we start relying on sound and frequency for medicine, we will rely less on things that we thought were healthy. Like donating blood's really not that good for you anyways. It's a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah, it's good to do. You just
It's
don't want
super good to do.
blood cells as much as possible is
Yeah.
that I've heard. So
Yeah.
And here's the thing is that when we are in our reprogramming phase, like our remembering, our downloads, our active like reawakening phase, our genetic, I call it scaffolding, it's your crystalline structure, your DNA structure becomes something that is it can get, while we are recalibrating, it can become something that is subject to external manipulation or
It could
things
get
that
hijacked.
but also like for example, you already like during my molecular restructure phase, I'm low on white blood cells because my body is doing so much to do X, Y, and Z that for me to go and donate blood at this point in time would be unwise because I am currently recalibrating and don't have enough white blood cells. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
as like as people start to rely on non-dense like food and life just a whole way of being, of just carrying yourself in a lighter energy and not being so heavy.
Yeah, so dense.
Dense. Yeah. It just changes. And as that happens, I think that we'll see people rely on traditional ways of medicine less and less and revert back to the old ways, which were what we always have known.
Yeah.
You know, they called women witch for the longest of time, but that what a woman that was labeled a witch really did was reconnected herself to nature to figure out what, and that's a very, I could say women because it's a feminine polarity thing to do.
Yeah.
It's so maternal, instinctually down to our genetic coding to know how to make ourselves well again, to know what the soul needs to heal itself.
You know what I saw that was really interesting? Before I tell you, is that Twilight, Kim?
yeah,
Is
Twilight
that Twilight? She's so cute.
Aww.
is
You're,
16.
yeah, look at her face. Oh, him. Look at him. He's
He's
so
old.
cute.
most
cute.
cats
You're
are
so cute.
so old you might break, so you need to gently put them
Aw.
down.
Aw. So what I was gonna say is I saw
So
this photo today, and I think
yeah,
Jacqueline from Ramblers of the Round Table, I think it was her that posted it. Maybe you guys saw it. It was a bird with all these ants all over his body. Did you see that?
I didn't see that.
Okay, so I forget what kind of bird it was, but it
yes.
was the moral of the story was when a bird knows that it's sick, it's called anting, and they go find an ant mound, and they sit on it, and they let the ants crawl all through their feathers, because I guess the ants release some type of chemical that'll kill off the fungi or whatever disease. And I just thought that was so interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of beautiful. I mean, existence is parasitic by nature, but it's also balanced harmoniously.
Yeah.
So
Thank God I saw that, because if I would have saw
yeah.
a bird with a whole bunch of ants on it, I'd be like knocking all the ants off of it. But
Well,
now I
that
know
too.
better.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even. Yeah, we think that it's so funny to think that it goes down to our programming, what we think is best, but still, you're still acting from a place like out of
Of
love.
love.
You're not doing
Yeah.
anything wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just like the bird might be like, "What the hell, bro? Like now I have to go get
The
more
bird's
ants."
like, get off of me. But I just thought
Yeah.
that was so cool. I'm
I've
so glad
got
I
Yeah.
saw that.
7% left on my phone. If I disappear, I just want to tell you, lovely ladies, you're both so very special to me. I look forward to seeing you on
Oh,
FaceTime, and
Thank
thank you.
Well, we want to see you get back to your podcasts as soon as you can.
Yes.
Even if you do it once a month. I know her screen's sticking.
I don't know where everybody went.
Yeah, her phone is maybe at the verge of.
Move your body, Kim. She's still on, but I don't know. I can't hear her. Anyways, I need to wrap it up because I gotta take my dog out. But I
I
mean,
know.
we need to do this again
Yeah,
because
this is my
we didn't
first.
even
This is
go
my
through
first
all of this
time.
stuff.
I've waited to come forward until like I was so sure that I didn't sound like condescending, or I didn't sound like, I just needed to develop who I was and my understanding of my own awakening before I started coming forward. And so I think that's what took me so long. But I'm really okay with um, disclosing whatever I can, however best I can, for the good of humanity.
That's awesome. No, I'm so glad, and we have uh Yada's on Yafa. Do you know who Yafa is? She's also on the Cosmic Disclosure community. And Kim, it's still showing that you're on, but you're stuck on the screen. Um,
Her phone
but
might have
yeah,
died and it left us with that.
yeah, I don't know. Let's see.
I do think that women are more spiritual beings. But that's like, again, I don't know how to explain that in a way that doesn't sound sexist. It's just that our breath lines originally held in masculine breath lines held a specific purpose, and feminine breath lines held a specific purpose. And when we distorted those original union breath codes pre-fall, the fall and hybrid agenda and war is what distorted those union codes.
Mm-hmm.
But the entire all of humanity had laws rewritten for them, and as far back as like as we know, we have been told how to exist or behave as a woman, which I think is really something interesting. So what are they trying to suppress from womanhood? If
Oh,
we're
I
going to
know.
start the book by this, the woman did this, you know what I mean? Oh, okay. What kind of power did she hold?
Right?
that you were that afraid of is what we have to really look at it. And it comes down to, as original feminine blueprint was able to create on her own, male was there for stabilization, which is actually so beautiful, because we would have this longing of half completeness without them anyways.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. And Kim, thank you for jumping on. And like I said, Kristin, we're gonna have to do this again, and
I'm
because we
so
didn't go
down.
over everything, but
For sure. Yeah.
So down.
For inviting
Thank
me
you
on.
guys. Yeah, this is amazing.
I can't wait to
and
hear
you
your experiences.
you
I
need
will
to go
share-
on Kim's podcast too.
I'm
Yeah.
so
You can
down.
bounce around.
I'm just trying to figure out a way to
Join.
oop,
Huh?
I lost it.
I know. You keep getting stuck, Kim. Okay, she's back
Yeah, I know. It's like I got 4% left on my battery, so the connection saying, "Hey, you're about to die." So
now.
phone's
Yeah, her
about to die,
battery's
but
going low.
really just
Yeah.
say, you guys have a nice night, and thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Good to
I
see
can't
you.
wait to
Thank
talk to you soon and see you online. we'll chat soon too.
Okay. Bye. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Well, now that I'm trying-
I think my biggest thing is like touching on is with my own disclosure is letting people know that non-terrestrial doesn't mean scary, and that non-terrestrial doesn't mean reptilian or gray. And unfortunately, negative connotations have been attached to those lineages. But so has light being to darkness. You know what I mean? So really, when we understand it, that what we're dealing with is people who exist in different format, whether it be flesh format that's different, or their color, or however they choose to present themselves and exist. We have to get past our idea that it can't be harmonious cohabiting.
We got to quit labeling things and come from pure love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when we all get down to our breath line, we all come from pure love. Before the fall, all of us come from pure love. It's just how many of us have too much of that hybridized, distorted material that we couldn't sift through, or it may not be in our programming to sift through in this lifetime.
Yeah.
So
Or at least not yet.
the splitting. Yeah, that's the splitting that we're witnessing. And those that we will be taking into our awakening process are going to come willingly, and it'll be natural for them.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again. And I'm not going to throw you backstage. I'm just going to close off because I have to go
Okay.
see how she's doing. But thank you. Thank you. This has been awesome. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely. Have a good
Okay.
rest of your night. And thank you so
You-
much for having me on.
You too. All right. I'll talk to you
Thank you.
soon. All right.